Back in 2015, when I started my Amazon marketing agency, Bobsled, the CEOs of the big agency holding companies dismissed Amazon advertising as a passing fad. And I'd speak with prestige beauty brands who told me that their shoppers would never put skincare in the same cart as toilet paper. Well, you all know how that turned out. Today, I'm seeing another inflection point that reminds me of those early dismissive attitudes. I think that we're going to look back at 2025 and consider it as the year that agentic shopping sprouted its first leaf. And I think that that incoming shift in consumer behavior could threaten the $60 billion retail media industry that's become retailers' golden goose. Today, I'm going to share a snippet of an interview that I did on the Agentic podcast with Scot Wingo, which first aired today, Thursday, August 7th. You should definitely go and listen to the full episode on your favorite podcast app. I'll link up to it in the show notes. But today, I'm replaying part of that episode where I'm going to share what happens when consumer behavior shifts from browsing retailer websites and apps to using personal agents to augment the process of researching, finding, and buying products. Let's listen to the conversation.
Retail media networks are a bit of a trap that retailers have put themselves into because they've gotten addicted to this high margin ad business
Yeah.
and spending more mental energy on that than selling stuff.
Yeah.
And we're about to enter a world where selling stuff's going to be really important. And there's going to be a whole new mechanism, which is agentic shopping, and they're not ready for it.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to jumping into this argument because I want to hear what you have to say. But yes, I think that there really is an existential risk that AI, or at least agentic shopping, poses to retail media. So I'll break down some core pieces of my argument. I want to hear what you think. The fundamentals of economics in retail media, how retailers make money, there's a few different buckets of advertising. One is the surface itself, the on-site ad surface that a retailer can sell. So this would be your website, your app. That's an ad surface that brands want to be on, because if we're spending time on a bestbuy.com or on an Amazon app, then the brands want to be there where people are making decisions and considering their options. And so the estimates vary on this, but let's say that's a 70 to 80% profit margin for running these on-site ads for retailers.
What's in the cost part of that? Like, why isn't it 100% margin? Like, what's the cost? Just the cost to serve an ad?
Yeah, so you have different technology partners that play a role in that. So you've got an ad server, you've got a supply side platform, and then you actually have to have a front door to that ad inventory as well, which would be a DSP, and everyone takes a cut of that along the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also some of these retailers and publishers, they'll have a direct sales team as well that might handle the VIP sales orders coming in. The other big piece of retail media is offsite retail media. And what happens here is a retailer will sell is the wrong word. They would never say sell, but they're essentially selling the transaction and audience data to third-party publishers. So Disney, for example, Disney's partnering with all of these retailers so that an advertiser who wants, let's say you're Heinz and you want to be selling more ketchup, then you're advertising on Disney and using Albertsons audience data to see which families live in the suburbs that are getting ready for a barbecue. So that margin is lower. Let's say that's 40%. Again, it's going to vary a little bit, but you're making money off of that audience data. And then finally, we talked a little bit about in-store physical digital signage and things like that. The physical environment, this is more of the old school type of trade marketing. So the end caps and the signs on the carts and things like that, that's trade marketing. And that's where all the retailers are trying to move the budgets over from trade marketing into retail media. But that's super profitable. That's pretty much 100% margin because there's less technology involved with that. And it's really just some humans on the retailer side managing that. Shoppers don't think in silos. They bounce between online and in-store without skipping a beat. Acosta Group's connected commerce agency helps brands unify trade and retail media budgets to invest where shoppers are most likely to convert, whether that's on mobile or in the store aisle. Learn more about Acosta Group Connected Commerce at acosta.group and let them know Retail Media Breakfast Club sent you. That's ACOSTA.group. So then we get to this question of what happens as consumer behavior starts to shift from using a retailer website or app to just now using ChatGPT or Perplexity or whoever to research, find, and buy. You're not going to that retailer.com or the app. I'm not sure who's going to have the transaction data on that, if the retailer is going to capture that or if it's going to be on the agent side. That was one thing I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah, so there's no FBA. It gets complicated if you have a third party shipping piece in there. But like, let's say there's no FBA option in there, and the way it has to work is kind of like the way eBay works, where you receive an order that's been paid for, and in that order, you're going to get the bill to information and the ship to, but you're not going to get the pay information. So I'm going to know I'm sending a bottle of Heinz ketchup to Carrie Masters in Atlanta, and I'm going to know her address, and I may know her phone number, but that's it.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it will most likely work that way. There have been marketplaces proposed. This is one of the things Jet.com did to be very differentiated, is they basically said, we're a merchant aligned marketplace. So our customer is your customer. We're sharing all that information with you. So they would send downstream. They still processed it. It still showed up as merchant of record. It was Jet, but then they would share downstream a lot of the information. And what they were trying to do is get the merchant aligned with, it kind of had like a Shopify vibe, like we're arming the rebels kind of thing. We're arming you to sell to these customers. And the more we tell you, the better. Then they were trying to incent the merchants to offer lower prices. They would even share kind of like how the merchant was doing in the auction, basically, kind of like the buy box like auction. And then they would also incent the merchant to take ACH payment and encourage customers to do that, so that then the payment processing fees were lower and all these kinds of things. So we don't know until they launch this thing. I imagine it'll look more like the fast way to build this is using Stripe actually as a platform for this. It's a marketplace platform, and it's going to probably be built on that. And then they'll have Shopify sitting next to it if you're a Shopify merchant. So I imagine it's going to look like what I said. You're going to get a paid for order, and it will have all the shipping information, and it'll be a fulfillable order that's been paid for.
So that is going to put this whole offsite retail media business at risk for retailers, because they don't have the transaction data and the signal data as well as what's really important too.
Have the transaction data, so they would know that Carrie bought the Heinz ketchup for $8 or 2-pack or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right.
They don't have traffic on their site, so the consumer, they don't know the consumer journey. They just get like an order that came back.
So I think even in that scenario, when the retailer has the transaction data, the agent's going to have the transaction data as well, right? Because they actually went and did the transaction. So now you've got two parties that know that Kiri went and bought the ketchup, and that degrades the scarcity of that data from the retailer, because this is a huge thing it's a huge advantage for retailers, is that they cover different value props. We cover all of Texas, or we're the number one electronics retailer. And so that first party data that they can allow advertisers to activate offsite, now ChatGPT can sell that data to advertisers as well, so it degrades the value of that. And then finally,
Sam Altman has said pretty publicly he doesn't want to do ads.
I want to thank Scott for having me on the Retail Agentic podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, definitely go check that podcast out on your favorite app. And next week on Monday, we're going to play a little bit more of the conversation where we talk about how brands and retailers should prepare for this new agentic shopping journey future. Catch you then.